Hey, thanks for joining me today on this Simple Coach to Coach Athletic Director interview. Do appreciate you taking the time in connecting. Um, um, Hopefully, your kids are all settled and
Things are
we've
good.
gone we've
Well,
gone through.
I'm not there, so
Yeah,
that's
they
what's
are
going
not settled, but you're just not present.
on.
You're that proverbial, if no one, if a tree falls in the woods, like, I don't know.
Yep, doing my thing here at Goucher.
Yeah. Um, but Andrew, thanks for joining today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, so I usually start off with this, and I have a little eccentric streak to them. I've applied for multiple athletic director roles and have got none of them. Largely because I am so unqualified, it's not even funny. But I'm just curious, what's your journey been like? I know
Wow.
you're a former soccer player, or maybe you still are as well. Once a player, always a player. But yeah, just sort of what your history is and how did you end up in the big chair?
Yeah, so professionally, the journey has been very abnormal for me to get here. Started my professional-ish career as an assistant coach at my alma mater, McDaniel. Did that for about a year and a half, and then Mount St. Mary's University, which is a small D1, also in Maryland, came calling. They were looking for somebody with some goalkeeper expertise. My the coach that I played for, John Pleviak, um, recommended me to the then coach Rob Ryerson, and we got connected. And I became the assistant coach there. Did that for like 2.5 years. Very different experience, frankly. Kind of the experience itself was great, but as I was coaching, I realized that coaching wasn't for me, probably, and certainly Division 1 wasn't for me.
Interesting.
That was a very clear realization rather quickly upon joining the Mount, and certainly nothing against the Mount. It was more about the landscape and the nature of the job in Division 1, and some things that I just didn't love. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I had been doing some student affairs work previously and decided maybe student affairs is my path. I just loved working with students, young people, seeing them blossom. It's kind of cheesy, but I grew up on a college campus. My dad was a professor, and just feels comfortable and exciting to work
Mm-hmm.
at a college. So I worked at a really small school for 2 years up in Vermont. Bennington College did not have athletics, completely out of my comfort zone. Really artsy school, learned so much, had an awesome mentor, Eva Chatterjee Sutton, who's now, I'm doing a lot of name dropping, who's now the vice president at W&J, um, and got a chance to just learn student affairs, tiny office, tiny staff. Everybody did a little bit of everything, and then after a couple of years, couldn't do another winter up there, and fortunately, this job at Goucher came open. It was an assistant dean of students job, and managed to get that. Um, Came down and did that for about 5 years. Another awesome mentor, another name drop, Brian Coker, who's the president of Maryville College now. Um, he ridiculously influential on my career and my me as a person. And Jeff Miller, who was the then AD, retired, and they knew background in sports. I was always down here. I was always, playing basketball with the coaches. Just liked being down here, given my background in athletics, and they let me do it for a semester while I ran the search for the next athletic director, which ultimately failed. And president and vice president asked me if I wanted to do it for another year, and did that. Loved it, and have been on for about 5 years now. So it's been really interesting, unexpected. Really appreciate Goucher and the leaders here who gave me that opportunity.
All right, so I have to ask because you brought it up, not me. So why did the search fail? Like you said, it failed, which obviously because you stayed on, but Was
Yeah.
there anything in particular? Was it hard to get people? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I sabotaged it so I could keep the job. No, no,
Well, it worked flawlessly, I will say then. Holy mackerel.
no. Actually, it was funny. We had some students that I was close with in my previous role. After it was announced that I was going to stay on, this was back when I think Game of Thrones was like ending, and
Mm-hmm.
they were like, "You Lannistered your way right into that job." Um, but no, we had a couple finalists and they were great. And I think that for one reason or another, different constituencies felt like they weren't the best fit, and
Mm-hmm.
so we did our kind of search committee meeting after the finalists came to campus, and the search committee, typical search committee, students, alums, staff, faculty, a couple board members, and President Bowen joined us for this meeting. And after a very brief discussion, the our one of the prominent alums who was on the committee asked me to step out, and they apparently had just kind of been having conversations about myself in the position and thinking that maybe I was an interesting choice. It was definitely interesting, and Jose, our then president, supported it. He's also a big soccer guy, so he's a big Chelsea fan. He ran like a presidential pickup game on campus, so I got to know him really well doing that, trying to nutmeg him and stuff. Um,
Yeah. Don't
but
do that. That's your boss. Don't do that anymore.
too tempting. It was too tempting. Um, so that's kind of just how that happened, and
Mm-hmm.
it's been fascinating. And now that I've been in the chair for 5 years, looking back and thinking about all the silliness that I brought to the table, and kind of bravado and mistakes that I made, it's kind of fun to look back on that,
Mm-hmm.
and put myself in the shoes of some of the coaches. I joke with a couple of our coaches, Brian Laud, our men's soccer coach, is one of them who was
Mm-hmm.
around. That I came in pretty hot with some pretty strong ideas and plans, and a lot of coaches did a lot of eye rolling for a little while when I first started. But it's great. It's the most fun, challenging job I could ask
Mm-hmm.
for.
I, I got to ask you a little bit about how you ended up. You realized while you were at the Mount that
Mhm.
it was the D1 experience was not for you.
Mhm.
What is it about, or what was it about the D3, or is it about the D3 experience that you think is the right fit
Yeah.
for you, is the right thing for you?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of answers. I will say I absolutely love the guys on the team. I felt special to have the opportunity to coach Division 1. I was super excited going into it, and was excited to work with the guys. Was excited to work with Coach Ryerson, and like I said, it was a great experience actually being there. But clear that I didn't want to do D1 for a few reasons. One, the money piece. Everybody's gonna say that. Yeah, the athletic scholarship piece I didn't love, particularly on the recruiting trail,
Mm-hmm.
having money be one of the first things that you're asked about by students and parents.
Yeah, yeah.
I kind of felt
You're
at
not the
times.
first. I'm sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
but you're not the first one I've heard that
Mhm.
from. Like
Yeah.
and over now it's with NIL and all that stuff. It's become an even more
Oh,
prominent discussion. But
yeah. Yeah. It's a bummer in some ways, especially when you're, evaluating talent and really trying to get to know a student. And it's just, give me a number. What's the number?
yeah, yeah.
And that wasn't all recruits or anything like that, but it was kind of disheartening because I went into student affairs. I grew up on campus. I'm a higher ed person,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a true believer in like finding the right fit.
Yeah,
And the big second reason why I realized D1 wasn't for me is uh, I felt like we had a lot of guys on the team who were there because of soccer and didn't love the school
yeah.
and didn't necessarily love the experience, and um, you know a couple who just happened to get the best athletic package available, and came there. And so certainly nothing against the Mount either, but it was almost like you feel. I think all recruiters and all coaches when they're recruiting kind of feel a little bit like a used car salesman, but this was like over the top. And
Yeah.
there were times where I felt like I was I was really laying it on thick, and almost to the point where you don't feel genuine. You don't necessarily
Yeah,
even feel honest sometimes. So
yeah,
just icky, just icky.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Did you have like a single gold tooth or anything during that time as you were selling, or no?
That would have
Pinky
fit.
ring?
That would have fit. I mean, honestly, like I didn't do that much recruiting, and that's very abnormal for an
Mm,
assistant coach. And we just approached recruiting very differently. We had, the first year I was there, the team had finished last previously in the NEC. I was when the Mount was in the NEC. We made it to the championship game first year. It was amazing. Brought in a couple international recruits who ended up just being studs, and kind of the culture of the team shifted quite a bit.
mm-hmm.
um, and it was awesome. It was like one of the coolest things I've been a part of. um, but yeah, you kind of, then you got to spend the next 6 months recruiting and selling,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's just it's a lot. And the for me, eventually the negatives probably outweighed the positives from a long-term standpoint.
Mm. All right, so I do this thing called Fields of Dreams, and one of the places I visited was Goucher,
Oh,
and
nice.
not knowing anything about Goucher
Mhm.
um, other than landmark and men's soccer and women's soccer, and the one thing I walked away from Goucher is how impressed I was with the facilities,
Yeah.
and just from a sporting standpoint, but just in general, everything about campus, I was just like, holy smokes,
Yeah.
for not knowing anything. And so I'd just like to talk a little bit about, is the are the facilities and the athletic stuff, is that a sign of things for what how Goucher is viewing the role of athletics on
Mm.
campus? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when I came on board, we had some deficiencies. Um, I don't think we necessarily had the staffing structure or compensation necessary
Mm-hmm.
to attract and retain really good coaches, and our facilities are, I think all ads will tell you, well, you might like our facilities, but there's 12 things that I think are,
Yeah,
urgent needs that we have to fix right away. But I think Goucher, our location and our campus
yeah.
itself is absolutely phenomenal.
Oh my gosh.
Basically right off the Beltway, and you have this, wooded campus with deer and fox running around in Towson. Anybody who's familiar with Towson knows the biggest suburb of Baltimore, developing like crazy. Towson University is right up the street.
You
So
wouldn't even know it. You
yeah,
wouldn't even
yeah,
know it. When you're on campus, you think you're in the middle of some.
yep,
You can be in Kansas. Well, maybe
yeah.
not Kansas, but
Maybe not.
you can be out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's special. It's a special.
Yeah.
It's our probably our best selling point.
Yeah.
Um, but from a facility standpoint, yes. I mean, we're hoping to do our locker rooms within the next year. We're hoping to add a second turf field inside of our stadium. I think probably a little bit longer term fitness center. We have a stables on campus. Our equestrian
Mm-hmm.
team
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
is really really strong nationally, and we want to do some equestrian projects. But I think overall, over the last several years, the college has invested in athletics in a few ways, and one of the probably, in my opinion, the most important way has been in staffing.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of restructured our salaries. We made all of our head coaches full time, 12-month, with no other administrative responsibilities, so they can come in and focus on their program and focus on building, which is something we needed to do
Mm-hmm.
when I first came on board, and something I feel like we're kind of climbing up the hill right now, doing some better and better things. And a big piece of that is just being able to recruit some coaches who are just absolute rock stars, and turning things around really quickly. So,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't happen without investment from the college. And like you said, kind of a statement of intent that,
Yeah.
we have some things that we want to do. And I think like I said, I think we're about halfway there and starting to see some benefits of the work right now.
Yeah. The equestrian thing I knew, and I think you're very good
Yes.
in that world. Which my wife, the only reason why I know it is because my wife, I guess, owned a couple horses. It's
Okay.
a big
Yeah.
rush. She goes on the weekends,
Yep.
so I'm always keen on that on equestrian teams. And
Yeah.
anyhow, the, So I get the staffing. The staffing piece is probably the most critical. Do you have? I guess I'll frame this a couple ways, but do you have objectives for, like, winning objectives for coaches? Like, are you starting to
Yeah,
if you're hiring the staffing and you're giving them full-time salaries, is there also this increased level of demand that your programs perform?
absolutely. Um,
Yeah.
and honestly, when I came on as athletic director, it was our basketball teams had just finished a season where both basketball teams went winless. And so when I came on board, and I'm still very close with Jeff, our previous AD, and he and I talk about this a ton. One of the big issues was the college wasn't asking the athletic department to win, and the college
Mm-hmm.
wasn't expecting the athletic department to win. The college was
Mm-hmm.
expecting, full rosters, good student experience, which is, you know, two very,
That's
very
part of
important
it. Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but not necessarily the rest. And so when I came on, I told our president and vice president, I said, I only want to do this. And I was going to do it no matter what, but I only want to do this if you're going to expect me to build this program up competitively, because, it's painful for me to lose. If anyone has ever seen a stream of one of our games, you will probably see me pacing, leaving the facility briefly and coming back, biting my tongue. So it's been huge for me. And that I kind of alluded to earlier, coming in hot when I was the AD, when I was named the AD, it was a lot of that. It was like, we're going to win. We're going to make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and we're going to do it quickly. And thankfully, really good people in the department and around me kind of brought me down to earth and um, developed some like plans. But that was a huge part of it, and probably last 3 years, it's been very clearly communicated with coaches, including in performance evaluations. You know, what are your competitive outcomes? Why are we? And the way we measure that is two ways. One, um, improvement from the previous season competitively. Um, but obviously, if you're improving your record every season, eventually all your programs are going to be national champions,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't necessarily the most realistic thing. But also reasons for optimism competitively. So, did you have the landmark rookie of the year? Do you have a class of 8 studs coming in who are going to,
Mm-hmm.
6 of them are going to start and move us forward? Are you returning, 10 seniors? What are we feeling really good about? And why is this program moving forward competitively? And so we do evaluate coaches on that, and that was new, um,
Mm-hmm.
and certainly the probably the biggest change for coaches as we went through that. And anytime you do that, you end up having coaching changes, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But as you mentioned, we've been able to hire really well. Thrilled about our staff right now, and we actually just announced our new volleyball coach. Tomorrow, we're going to announce our new associate athletic director and senior women administrator. So we're moving in the right direction, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling really good about it.
So to talk about staffing, which it didn't lead that it didn't start there. I actually interviewed before Commissioner Boldvich months and months ago, and I started this idea of, like, hey, I should start interviewing athletic directors. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, hey, she has been as supportive of what
Yeah,
I'm trying to accomplish on the soccer side, and she's love her sort of energy, and so
she
I
is
reached
the
out.
best. She is the
She,
best.
yeah, she's it's really interesting. Her thinking, right, really intrigues me. Like, just the foresight she has, and the almost like an intuition about where sports is going
Yeah,
and where Division
yeah,
three sports needs to go, where the landmark needs to
yeah.
go. And I think that's one of the things. But so that's how we got introduced. However, the one that really started it was your hiring of Coach Singleton
Yep.
from Washington and Lee to head up the women's program.
Mhm.
And the first question, the I guess I'm just going to ask: were you surprised that he was applying for the job?
Yeah,
I mean that respectfully.
yeah.
I
No,
don't. You know
it's
what I
all good.
mean?
Yes. um, surprise. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I also, once we had a chance to talk, kind of understood,
Yeah.
we understood.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But
Yeah.
anytime you got somebody who's made two of the last three Final Fours on the men's side,
Yeah.
and then he applies for your women's coaching job, and our team has been like pretty good, and kind of a little up and down. Last year we had like 8 ties, but we had some good results, and the ties just kind of tainted our record. But um, yeah, I was a little surprised, but after talking with him and getting to know him a little bit, it all made sense and worked out for his family, uh,
Yeah, yeah,
which
yeah.
was
Yeah.
a huge piece. But like worked out for his family, but also he would have had many other opportunities,
Yeah.
and probably did have. He didn't like throw them all in my face, but
Yeah.
probably did have other opportunities. And I think the prospect of taking this program that is not necessarily a full rebuild, but a project.
Hmm.
And doing that at a place like Goucher, where I think we have so much potential, appealed to him. And he's just such a cerebral, you know, guy
He's
that
awesome.
I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
I made the mistake of trying to talk some soccer with him during the interview process, and I had to stop him. My wife was like, "Dude, you are so beyond me. I got nothing. Let's talk about like recruiting or something." Um, but yeah, it was a great hire for us. He fortunately got to spend
Fantastic.
some time with our team this spring, and they are just over the moon about what he's bringing to the table. And I'm excited to see what happens these next couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He I will say, like, however it happened, and I spoke to him a couple weeks ago, I
Hmm.
think, and we talked about his reasons and family and all that stuff,
Yeah.
which is fine,
Yeah.
but it is, I have to say, like, if you were in the soccer world, I think you almost like hit the coaching lottery, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure you could have found much better coaches for the job, to be honest with you, like a
Completely
head
agree.
coaching job, period. And I
Yeah. Well, I
just
mean,
so happens to be soccer, right? Like,
yeah, yeah. Like when I during the interview process, and even after we announced, and I was talking with alums and students and parents and whoever else it might be, and I'm going through what he brings to the table, all of the soccer accomplishments certainly, and everything
you
he's
know,
been involved in. But the guy started a sports psychology program at WNL.
yeah, yeah,
Like it's like
yeah,
a dream hire.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
I was really excited. I'm always excited when we get an announcement out about a hire, because I like Goucher getting a little attention, even if it's
yeah,
just some retweets and D3 ticker or whatever.
yeah, 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 yeah.
But
Huge,
yeah,
man,
yeah,
huge.
I
You've
knew
been
that
in
we
the
were.
news a lot lately,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because you got the $55 million,
yes, yes,
right? 55, yes,
55,
whatever it was.
55. Yeah,
Anyhow, sorry.
yeah. Interestingly, as an aside, I mentioned my old boss at Bennington, Eva. She's at W&J, and
Uh-huh.
they same donor. She donated 50 million to them too.
Oh,
So
that's
my old
awesome.
boss and I have this like mutual connection, through that philanthropy. So it's pretty
Wow,
cool. But yeah, I,
wow.
I mean, when I was excited to announce Mike, because I kind of knew it was going to be a splash. It was going to be a wow, how did Goucher get him type
Yeah,
type
yeah.
thing. And I got some texts from ads that were like, come on, man. You got to cool it with some of these hires. But
Yeah.
yeah, thrilled.
I yeah, it was I just don't think anybody expected, but I also think, to what I mentioned earlier and what you mentioned, how did Goucher land somebody like Coach Singleton? I also think it's because nobody really, uh, you got to step on campus, as far as I'm concerned, to
Yeah,
really get Goucher. Like, it is as unique of a urban school,
yeah,
I guess, maybe.
yeah,
Like, you're on 400, 500 acres. There's nothing your eye can see, and it takes you to a different place. And I
yeah,
just think and the facilities, like I said, the soccer stadium and
yeah,
everything else is just off the charts, off
yeah.
the charts. So
It's
I
it's
think that was the combo of the
yeah,
things.
yeah. I mean, it's really it's like a haven. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
students, we even have like a low we have a low profile even on Delaney Valley Road, which is the road that
yeah,
turns we've got this little sign that says Goucher. We don't have some bridge, some
Yeah,
overpass going over it.
yeah,
It's just a very kind of like, here we are. And I think that works for us. And students who come here are in the unique position where they can have the kind of quieter, smaller school experience
yeah,
that you might get. I hate to use the phrase middle of nowhere, but I'm going to use it at like a school that's, out there.
yeah.
And also, if they feel like walking up the street and going to a Towson football game or going downtown, it's a quarter mile up the street.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've become a big fan of Goucher. Honestly, like I said, I look at these. I visit a lot of schools when I
Yeah,
get a chance,
yeah,
and it's like it's not even a diamond in the rough. It is a diamond. Like sort
yeah,
of, I'm like, holy
yeah.
smokes.
Got to come in the fall. Got to come in the fall when the leaves are changing. It's
Oh my gosh, I could
yeah,
only imagine.
yeah.
So I actually might be there I might be passing through tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, long story, but yeah, I might be passing through tomorrow.
All right.
Okay, and you guys are different. I say that differently because you do have a very healthy philanthropic funnel, right? Like
Yeah.
you're getting donation dollars. I think you're I think you get a lot of money, and this 55 million was the latest, which is astounding, right? Like
Yeah.
it's going for different brands. But I'm just curious from the athletic standpoint, and just you talking to others, like is the position you're in more of a rarity than I think it might be?
As far as financially,
Financially, yeah.
yeah. I mean, and honestly, I've kind of told our coaches to use our finances as a talking point, as we're
Yeah.
recruiting against some other schools whose endowments might be smaller, who might
Yeah.
be, in a little more tenuous position. And yeah, I mean, I think we're definitely doing very well financially, especially like with the really important financial stuff, the
Mhm.
endowment size.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I think that this gets talked about a lot, but over the next several years, the schools that are able to kind of last through, the fire of the enrollment cliff
Mhm.
schools closing, suddenly supply and demand find another equilibrium, and
Yeah.
everybody can be healthy. You just got to survive the next several years where the enrollment cliff is going to be affecting everybody,
Yeah.
and you need to have at least a couple hundred million in the bank to do that, probably,
Yeah.
and feel very confident about it. So yes, yeah. I mean, when we look at, I even tell coaches, like, okay, your recruit is looking at X school, Y school, Z school. First thing you should do, Google their endowments. If we have
Yeah.
the highest one, talk about that a ton. Talk about having a degree from a school that still exists.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not being in any trouble about potentially closing or cutting
Closing. Yeah.
programs or
Yeah.
anything like that.
Yeah.
So it's good. It's good. I mean,
Yeah.
we want to do a lot of things better as a college. We want to
Mhm.
increase our enrollment. And from the athletic standpoint, I'm hoping that within the next few years, athletics is a bigger draw than it has been in the past for students, and we
Mhm.
kind of get that reputation, especially in Maryland, Mid Atlantic region,
Yeah.
of a very competitive athletic
Yeah.
program, which we haven't necessarily had much in the past.
Yeah. I do think where you're located, just purely from the soccer perspective, I mean, you're kind of in the thick of a gold mine, the DMV, right? Like I just
We're in
think,
it. We're in it.
yeah, you're in the middle of it in a great location that I think there's other schools that could say, hey, look at us, right? We're in Baltimore, whatever, that are big draws. I definitely think it helps, you know.
Yeah, 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 and lacrosse. I mean,
Lacrosse. Oh yeah, yeah,
it's like
yeah,
Towson is like lacrosse capital of the world. USA Lacrosse is right up the street.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I mean, the location is not everything, but it's a lot,
yeah.
and you can get whatever experience you want.
Do you guys have? I'm going to ask you something. This is totally off the. I just realized that because, right, if you haven't, for those who haven't been to Goucher, you have the soccer stadium,
Mhm.
soccer lacrosse field hockey,
Yep.
maybe.
Yep.
Stadium. Just beyond that is the track.
Yes.
You don't have a football program.
We don't. It's lovely. I mean,
I,
as a former soccer player, I mean, it's when you share your competitive season with the football team,
oh yeah, it
it's a little
hurts. I
different.
know.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I I joke about it, but I am at this moment, for a lot of different reasons, especially for Goucher and the culture at
mm.
Goucher. Football is not it for us. We also don't have
That's
baseball or
interesting.
softball, so
Oh, that's right.
three huge sports
It's
that we
huge
don't
sport.
have.
Yeah.
Softball, I think, would be a great addition for us sometime in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I think men's volleyball is always being discussed as well, but no football, baseball, softball, and we also use that as talking points with recruits. We
Yeah.
say, oh, you're looking. I'll use McDaniel because it's my alma mater, and I love McDaniel, and they know that. But we can use McDaniel. Uh,
Yeah.
you're a soccer player. Well, they have football, and as for better or worse, football is going to get a lot of the attention here in the
Yeah.
fall. Soccer is it. Soccer
Yeah.
gets all the
Yeah.
attention, all the press, the
Yeah.
crowds. This is soccer is it. So,
Yeah.
I appreciate it specifically at Goucher too. I think it
Yeah.
works really well.
Can you just explain? Because this is the sort of thing. Now you're going into territory that really intrigues me, where you just said culturally you didn't think
Hmm.
something like football would be a
Hmm.
fit
Yeah,
at Goucher.
yeah,
Could you just expand on that? Like, what is it about either football or what is it about Goucher that makes you think that?
yeah. No, I mean, I think part of it is Goucher's history. We were women's college up until the '80s. You know, we actually had some really good athletic years in the '90s when we were really pushing hard to go co-ed and attract men, and specifically like men's basketball program was fantastic. We've had some really good years with men's lacrosse. Um, back in the '90s, women's lacrosse Final Four, field hockey was really good. Um, but I think as a smaller school, as a school that um, non-student athlete population, we don't have like we don't have Greek life. We
Mm-hmm.
don't have much of a party culture on campus.
Yeah.
So, I think a lot of people, and I'm probably guilty of this too, when I think about football, I think about tailgates, homecoming,
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. I don't know if we necessarily have the student population and alumni population that has much interest in football.
Yeah.
And being a smaller school, you add football, you add 100 football players to
Kids.
your campus, that changes the whole landscape of campus.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
changes,
true. That's a
yeah,
great point. That's
yeah.
a great
Um,
point.
so I think that's a piece of it too. But
Yeah.
there's some other sports that would be cool to add, but and I get asked about football a good bit. Like even a couple board members every now and then will give me the like thinking about football. The answer is always like, no, not here,
No.
not here.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think. I hate to say, I don't think it works, but I frankly don't necessarily think football at Goucher is the way to go.
I think that the interesting that you said, and it's true, especially at a small school, right? Like 100 kids of any sport
Hmm.
that you bring in is going to have an impact beyond what you realize, just
Yeah,
because the student population, the
yeah.
ratio of it, right? Like
If you're a school of 1,200 and you
yeah,
and you have 100 football, one out of every 12 students is a football
yeah,
player.
football player.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that just changes things. It's not good or bad, but it definitely changes uh,
yeah,
the campus and
yeah.
the student population.
All right, just a couple more questions, and I'll
Sure.
let you get on with your day. But what is there anything maybe from your perspective from gout? I guess as you think about Goucher athletics and
Hmm.
um, that might be keeping you up at night, like just concerns that you like everything.
I mean, when people ask me, and we're right by Towson, Loyola, a lot of big
Yeah,
schools, and Goucher students too. When people come to me and say, "Can I interview you?" Like, I want to be an AD one day. Can you talk about the job? The first thing I tell them is you need to think hard about that. It is probably not what you think. Um, and I say that because everything keeps me up at night.
Yeah.
Everything. I mean, when you're doing a job like this and you get to know students, you care about the students and you care about their
24/7.
yeah, you care
Yeah.
about their
20.
success.
Yeah.
You're doing a coaching search, you're recruiting and you got to make sure you hit your recruiting outcomes and you're managing a staff of 20 plus full-time employees and 50 plus other employees and
Yeah.
that always brings stress and problems and it's everything truly.
Yeah.
I've lost sleep before big competitions. I've lost sleep after big competitions. I
You're a competitor. You're still a player, man. I
Oh
hate
my
to tell
gosh.
you that.
I
You never lost it.
No. I mean, I will tell people all the time one of the hardest things about being an athletic director is being like a person that you're not allowed to yell at referees. You have to be professional, stand on the sideline. If it doesn't go your way, you got to just eat it because not only do we have to represent ourselves well and show our students
Ah,
what proper behavior looks like, but we also understand the official shortages and the crisis, and we're like,
yeah.
I can't be the one abusing these people because we need them. But it's tough when you're out there. I was one of my first conventions. It might have been my second NCAA convention, and Sean Sullivan, who was a previous AD at Catholic, and I got to know each other really well, really quickly. He's up at Salve Regina right now. We were sitting at one of the receptions, and Catholic was playing Goucher men's basketball, and we were
Mhm.
struggling and throughout the year, and it was a tight game. And I was wringing my napkins. I was like standing up and he's just cool as a cucumber. And he's like, Andrew, you are gonna give yourself a heart attack at 40. Like you gotta relax. How many games do you have a season? Like chill. But I haven't gotten over it. I just, it's one of those things when you wear it on your chest,
Yeah.
it's very personal and
Yeah.
you really do. But yeah, lose sleep every night. First thing I do if I wake up at 2 a.m. because my kid's crying or something, is like, what's happening with work?
Yeah.
And it's a
Yeah.
blessing and a curse.
Yeah. Well, it's a blessing that those are the things that are occupying your mind. I will say, right? Like
Yeah,
you could be in a position or dealing with a lot worse.
yeah,
So, um, but last, I guess the last thing I'll ask is what, just in terms of, where do you see Goucher athletics here in the next several years?
yeah.
Like, are you, I'm sure you have this idea in your head, probably not as aggressive as when you started, but right? It says like at this point, I want us to be here, and at this point, I want us to be here. What are you seeing over the next couple of years
Yeah.
for Goucher athletics?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are at the point right now where we are beginning to establish ourselves much better in the Landmark Conference. Had a lot of firsts this year with Landmark competition and hoping for more next year. Um, you know, one marker that I like to use because we kind of do care most about our performance in the Landmark Conference is where are we at with the President's Trophy.
Mm-hmm.
Historically, we've been at the bottom, and last
Mm-hmm.
few years we've climbed a little bit off the bottom. I'm hoping this year we're a little bit more, especially
Mm-hmm.
after adding a couple schools. Um, but I like to use President's Trophy as a marker. I would love to see us, certainly in the top half within the next few years. And that's a tall ask. We have some
Mm-hmm.
really, really good athletic programs in our conference across the board, but we also have some good things going for us as far as like the sports that we sponsor and the
Mm-hmm.
ones that we are particularly good at. So I would love that. I would love to hear more. And this is much more subjective, but I would love to hear more from recruits that like Goucher has a great athletic reputation, and I want to be part of it. I think we're hearing it for a lot of programs right now, and certainly with a lot of the programs where we've been able to bring in really qualified head coaches or have coaches who have served for a long time. Um, want to hear that as much as possible, and I want to hear people talking about Goucher,
Mm-hmm.
and be in the paper a little bit more, get in the Baltimore Sun a little bit more, get some attention in their preseason. The big thing in Baltimore is like preseason
Yeah.
Baltimore area lacrosse outlook, and we don't get a lot of love in that. I think we will after this year's. We had a better year this year, and we're moving in the right direction. But just get a little more attention. But 3 years, top half of the landmark. After that, hopefully winning more championships. We've won a lot of championships in like tennis and golf and
Yeah.
equestrian,
Mm-hmm.
but winning more championships and really establishing ourselves as perennial postseason teams and getting those NCAA berths. But I think one of the big reasons I want that to happen is that reputational piece,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can make sure that we're having more fun every day, but probably more importantly that we're accomplishing the mission of the institution and making sure that we're doing our job in advancing Goucher and making sure our students have fun and are proud about
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing.
Success begets success,
Yep.
like that is very true. And I think in the collegiate athletics, um, I think that's especially true. I always ask the guys and ladies who finish high up in the, whether it's in the NCAA tournament or just
Mhm.
overall, they're ranked in the country. And I always ask them, like, has your recruiting picked up? Has the interest in the school picked up? And anecdotally, I'd say it's 100%. It is always, we had this great season, and the kids who are asking about us is through the roof,
Yeah,
and that they wouldn't have otherwise asked for. And I think that is
absolutely.
very, very, very true.
Absolutely. I think right now the best example for us is probably with our men's basketball program. We hired new coach Justin Klingman last year,
Yeah,
and immediately first landmark playoff berth ever,
yeah,
in his first season, and his recruiting this year, especially as the season was going and as it was looking like we are going to make the postseason, completely different. We're getting interest from transfers who come in from schools that we typically don't get that much. But when you
yeah,
can show the program's moving in the right direction, you can be a part of something
yeah,
special. That's appealing to
yeah,
students.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, you don't have to. I always say you have to. The wins help, but you also have to have that vision ahead of you. And if you
Yeah,
don't, then it's not gonna. You
yeah,
don't carry anything forward, anything of value, like real value. The wins and
yeah.
losses will come and go, but the real
Mhm.
value of being part of a program, right? It
Yeah,
wants to be forward thinking.
yeah, and that's
And
hitting the institutional targets that are set out for us. And
mhm,
that was a big point that I made when talking about what we wanted, why competitiveness is important. Is if we are winning, we're retaining way better, we're graduating way better, students are having a
yeah,
better experience,
yep,
it's much easier to recruit, we're all having more fun, staff
yeah,
are going to stay around longer. It goes on, and that's because of winning.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I totally agree.
Yeah.
And Justin Klingman, right?
Yep. Yep.
He's the your head basketball coach.
Hmm.
I think it's his
Yes.
brother, Colin Klingman,
Yep.
just got the head coaching job at Ursinus and
Yep.
was at an assistant, I think, at Catholic, and then
Yep.
went to some place at
Binghamton.
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 Yeah.
Yep.
I think, from what I understand, I don't know much. I've never spoken to him, but I definitely will reach out. But I think his whole family has
Yeah.
like Division III area ties, and anyhow,
The Klingmans are a good Division III family. They
yeah, 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 that's
Scranton University in our conference.
yeah,
So our Justin, our coach, went there. Dad
yeah,
worked there. Mom worked there for a
yeah,
time, and then Justin went over to actually coach at Ursinus, and
mm-hmm.
then coached at Catholic, and we got him from there. But yeah,
Yeah,
Colin just got hired. We're happy for him. Ursinus got a good one. Those Klingmans get the job done.
yeah. All right, Andrew. Hey, this was fantastic. I really do appreciate it. Love what you're doing. Like I said, I've become a fan.
That's great.
I just think you guys are. I do think you have a lot. in your favor, a lot of wind in your sails, and I hope it comes to fruition for you and your programs. But
Thank you.
Thanks for the time, and yeah, I'll knock on your door if I'm around tomorrow.
Yeah, please do. Easy to find, as long as we're not playing staff hoops.
Yeah, no. Look, I understand. That's like, I would never interrupt somebody if they were in the middle of making a cup of coffee, like, and that's super sacred time. So I get it. I won't interrupt, I promise.
It's all good.
So,
Great talking to you.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.